Good evening. It's great to be here. I guess my reputation went ahead of me. I see President Kraft has left. A little warning, just a few things. In my hometown, they actually made me the announcer, PA announcer for the town baseball games to make me more quiet. And some years ago, our 10th reunion was coming up at Concordia here, and so I talked to Reverend Ernie Mancini. I said, Ernie, I played on the football team. It's our 10th reunion. It'd be great maybe if I did the national anthem before the game. He said, that sounds great. So I sent an email to Armin People, who was the AD, and said, Armin, Ernie Mancini said I should sing the national anthem at the football game. Neither one of them asked for a demo or asked whether I'd ever sang the national anthem before. So I did, and I got a standing ovation, so I did pretty good. Actually, most national anthems, you get a standing ovation, but... And when I thought about being a movie star someday and walking the red carpet, this isn't exactly what I envisioned, but it'll work for tonight. So thanks again. My story that I want to share is one about my life and how it changed from having to deal with rare disease. And actually, you'll learn that I kind of traded one for another rare disease. But I also want you to think about the fact that this isn't about trying to get you to feel sad or have some pity for what I went through or anything like that. In fact, I think the struggle that a lot of people with rare disease or their families that are affected by it is that sometimes people think that's what it's about. And really it's more of a mission to help get the word out that if we can channel some more resources and give some more support for that, people can get back to a normal life and be very productive citizens. And that's really what it's about. Since that happened to me, my life has become much more productive, and I never imagined when I graduated in '88 that I'd be coming back to Concordia to give a TED Talk that was being live streamed, because that stuff didn't exist back then. So there's a lot of reasons to keep going ahead with stuff. But yeah, I'm going to talk to you tonight about some of the things that I've learned, the lessons I've learned about dealing with stress. And what happened about 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with Cushing syndrome, and the experts in UCLA put the ratio at about 10 people out of every million, which is really kind of a letdown, because when I was a young man, I was thoroughly convinced that I was actually 1 in a million. You can guess who I'm talking about there. The middle child trying to compensate for that with a whole lot of self-love, and it didn't work. But that's Norman and his four boys. We grew up on a farm about an hour from here. And what happened for the cure then was that I needed to trade Cushing syndrome, 10 people out of a million, for what's called surgical Addison's disease, which is about 100 out of a million. So it's still fairly rare, but I did move up the ladder a little bit in trying to be normal. And what I want to do with you is, again, not take you through the struggles that I had, but try and share with you the lessons I learned about handling stress because of that. And this is what keeps me alive. That's my daily regimen, 20 milligrams of hydrocortisone and 0.5 of fluorocortisone. As long as I take that, I'm supposed to have a normal life expectancy. If I stop taking that, after about 36 hours, I would go into shock and die. So I try and keep a little bit of that stockpiled wherever I go. And again, the lessons that I want to get you to really focus on is the idea that stress in itself, we all think it's negative, but for me, I think it's more about how we handle it and how we perceive it. And I like to try and delineate between good stress and bad stress. And for me, good stress, there's a couple shortcuts. First of all, bad stress, I just remember the acronym, BS. We all deal with that in our life, and you know what that's like. You can usually see it a long ways away. Another way to think about is to frame it up as good stress is something linked to a solution, whereas bad stress is probably a situation where you have little or no chance to win. And what you want to do, very simply, is just be able to more quickly recognize the good stress and see it as an opportunity to reach that success, that solution, and grab hold of it, and also be able to recognize the bad stress and just let it go. I teach and I coach. You talked about being on some different boards for education. I'm on the governing board for Education Minnesota and the board of directors for the Minnesota Rural Education Association, and on the board of directors for the Minnesota Education Equity Partnership. And I'm just an English teacher in a little town in southern Minnesota called St. James. Now, how does all that happen? Well, you get on one, and then they say, boy, really nice if we had somebody on that other organization. And then you come back to next meeting and say, well, I'm on that board now. How'd that happen? Well, don't worry about it. And then they say, well, it'd be really great. The second one says it'd be really great if we had somebody in there, and then you come back to the next meeting and tell them that's where you are too now. So it all kind of works together. And it might sound like a lot, but they really, I found that sitting at those different tables, they all have some of the same goals, and so it works together. And that's another thing you'll find too. But as a teacher and a coach, I think about the most stressful sport probably is wrestling. You got no ties, you got no substitutions, Okay? Somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose, and usually it's pretty easy to see who has the good stress and the bad stress. So in pretty close quarters, I think that's displayed well in this picture. That's actually my youngest, Logan, with the good stress from a few years ago. And I'd like you to meet my family. That's my beautiful wife, Susie, of 22 years, and my daughter, Addison, is a senior. She's 18. Sam is a junior in college. He's 21, and Logan's 13. There's a whole lot of good stress going on in that picture. My wife's a passionate, talented educator. My kids all have some great talents of their own, and they're all different, but they all get along. And I don't know if there's a better gift that you could ask for than that. So that's my now. We're going to take a little look back. Some of you of an older generation might recognize the rearview mirror on a 62 Catalina there, but you won't find a lot of those around anymore. But in February of 97, I was diagnosed with Cushing syndrome. And it took about 5 years to get the diagnosis because it's a rare disease, and it's a syndrome, so there's a lot of different symptoms. The main marker for it was high blood pressure. So my blood pressure was about 180 over 150, just sitting still 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for at least 5 years. So to finally get a diagnosis was really a good thing, even though it sounded kind of like bad news. And during the testing for that, they also found a tumor by my vena cava. So they said, we're going to have to operate on that first. If that's terminal, we won't have to bother with taking out your adrenal glands, which is how you cure Cushing syndrome, which is some more good news, I guess. But from that moment on, I needed to look at my some other times as maybe one last chance. And it forced me to live my life differently because I didn't know how much life I had left. And it was a good thing because nothing that I did after that could be anything less than what I valued. Why did I tell people that I cared about them? Well, I valued them. Okay? Why did I go along with a busload of kids up to Hendrum, Minnesota, just up the highway here during the spring of '97 to help with flood relief? Well, I thought it was a valuable action. Why did I journal every single day for the first 3 years of my firstborn's life? Because I valued that child tremendously. I thought someday he would value those words. And why did I finish every journal entry with the phrase, thank God for? Because in those days of constant pain, every day was a little worse for 5 years. I had to find something of value in that day. Amidst all that pain, there had to be something that I valued, and that's how I ended every single journal entry for every single day, was thank God for. And I found a couple of those journal entries. Top one, came home to see my little guy, said, Daddy's been on kind of an emotional roller coaster today. That's one of the symptoms, too, for Cushing syndrome. It sure keeps you alive. One way to look at it, I guess. I looked in on you a little while ago, and you weren't on no roller coaster. All there was a beautiful little boy sleeping peacefully. Thank God for that. We went to the aquarium. You had your fingers stopped by the glass walls. I looked at your face and saw the wonder. I thought I knew a lot before, but I'm learning to look again with you and see more wonder and magic. Thank God for that. And finally, you're so amazing, my best buddy. I don't have it all. I've got it even better. Thank God for that. So again, there was a daily ritual of trying to figure out how to deal with the stress. And I let all the pain and all the stress stay out of my journal entries. I write about it a little bit, but it wasn't going to get the final say. My final say was going to be thanking God for whatever it was that I found that day. And I could always find something. Now, I try to pass along some lessons about stress to my children. Both of my sons are pitchers for baseball. That's Logan, and there's Sam. And my daughter's also a thrower. I coach her in track as she throws a shot put and discus. And before they go to compete, I'll say, hey, don't mess up. And that might sound kind of mean, because pitching can be stressful, and obviously you've got 6 or 7 feet to do all the work that you're supposed to do with a shot put or discus. But what it tells them is you don't have to be Superman or Superwoman. You just need to do what you can do and do it right. And don't do those other cats any favors. Okay? And that's been a pretty good recipe for them. I'd be remiss if I didn't share with you somebody even more rare than myself. This is Blake. I get to coach Blake too. Blake's a 5-time state champion. And he's broken the state record every single time. And he's only a sophomore. Now, Blake has some rare circumstances. He was born with a condition. He wasn't supposed to survive birth, but that condition has restricted him to a wheelchair. It's also given him the opportunity to compete in the wheelchair division for the state high school league. And that medal that he's got, that gold medal, it's just like every other state champion's gold medal. It's just that his circumstances are different. Blake is also a great example of purpose versus circumstance. Because purpose doesn't care about circumstances. Because purpose is too busy doing what purpose does. So Blake has those rare circumstances. He doesn't care. His purpose is what it's about. Okay? His condition also makes him predisposed for seizures. So, and those can happen from getting jolted around as I push him across the field to get to a shot put ring or the discus cage. It might be from a loud noise like a starter's gun, but he doesn't let that stop him. He gets to that competition area, and he's there to do his purpose, and that's to throw farther than he did the last time. Okay? And when we look at those state champions, you're going to find they have a set of circumstances as well, but they choose to keep their focus on their purpose. They don't get sidetracked looking at circumstances. Okay? They stay with their purpose. And that's because purpose doesn't care about circumstances. Purpose is too busy doing what purpose does. If you can get a purpose and get busy, you're going to do pretty well. I would also need to attribute the greatest portion of my success for dealing with stress to what I learned growing up on the farm. I grew up on a farm about an hour from here, like I said, and I had some brothers. Of course, we're going to be helping on the farm. Dad decided to start us out at the introductory level. We didn't go after the big livestock right away. Instead of the cattle, he started us with a cat. Poor cat. Guy in the middle, that's Glenn. He's now a successful instructor at the MMI Institute teaching Harley mechanics in Orlando. And the guy in your far right there, he was an ROTC scholarship winner, went on to be Army Ranger and an Army General by the time he was 25. That's Philip. But when we were ready to start going after the cattle, we had an indoor training facility. That's me. But the most important thing was the rules. And you learned some very important rules that weren't ever written down, and I don't know if they were ever explicitly shared with us. We just learned them, and you learned that they applied to everything. And there was no 5 o'clock, okay? There was sunlight on the farm. And if you had a job on the farm, that job wasn't done until you had everything cleaned up. And those 2 rules have served me very well for everything that I've done since then. It helped prepare me to be a good farmhand in the cornfield or in the grain bin. It helped me to be successful on the football field. This is actually me 32 years ago on the field just a little south of this building. 17 years old, trying to play college football. And I met a lot of good people doing that. It has also helped me trying to be a husband and a father. Little people don't always agree with you. It's helped me as a teacher and coach, trying to prepare and learn with young people as they discover their purpose. And another thing, too, is to really focus on trying to look for the extraordinary in things that may not be so special at first glance, or take something that's ordinary and turn it into something special. Swing as hard as you can. Look for something of beauty in a place where you haven't seen it before. Be ready for that timing for a moment that may never happen again. And don't fight your birthdays. This is my 49th birthday, just this fall, and these are 40 of the best people I could have shared it with. And I'm glad for every birthday. Now, I get a little tired of people who talk about the saying, nobody promised you tomorrow. I'd rather look at it as, who in the hell promised you today? And that's what I think when I wake up. You know, you spend years and years, half a decade, dying a little more every day. When you wake up and you feel good, you don't want to slow down. I remember waking up in the emergency room. I already felt 100 times better than I had after those surgeries. And I started singing, which isn't good in an ICU full of people with heart conditions. But I was getting ready to sing the anthem at Concordia's homecoming, wasn't I? Another way to really frame it up, I think, is every time, if you want to be just something real quick and easy to help make your life better, every time you're going to say have to, don't say it. Instead, say get to. Okay? And that's a frustrating thing, too, when you don't have much left and you hear people grumbling about things that they get to do and thinking and framing it as I have to do this, and you're thinking, I wish I could know that I get to do that. So when you're going to say have to, let that go and instead say get to, and realize how fortunate you are to have that opportunity. When I haven't taken a sick day in the 19 years since those surgeries. And I've had, broken bone, gallbladder attack, blood clots. I've been sick, but I never felt as bad as I did before that. And I knew that your circumstances may be a little bit hard to change, but your feelings can change. And I knew that I would feel better eventually. And that's what kept me going, even when I didn't feel that good. So I always showed up for work. Now, that's another thing, too, is recognize that your circumstances can change. Sometimes, though, like with Blake, his circumstances provided him with a purpose. So don't miss out on that either. So keeping in mind that have to is not where you want to be, and it needs to be changed to more of a get to. I remember one other journal entry that kind of sticks with me. I wrote, I don't want to die, but it really wouldn't bother me too much. And again, there was continual pain and progressive pain that went along with this condition. And I didn't want to die. I had a beautiful wife and a perfect child and so much to live for, but I just couldn't deal with the stress that came along with a life of Cushing syndrome and what was happening at that time. So I had to let it go. I turned it over, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. I couldn't change those circumstances, but I could think about my purpose and strengthen that. So again, have to versus get to. There's one last thing that I want to share with you tonight, and it's going to be an image too, an image you may never forget. I had to take a class here to fulfill a humanities credit 30 years ago, and the professor was Professor Boggs. And I actually went to go visit him this morning. He's going to retire this year, not because of me visiting him again, but we shared a few thoughts, and he's really, the buildings are much better than the one we were in, and again, he's accomplished a great deal of things. And he was surprised I still had this drawing, but what happened is, on that particular day, I was 310 drawing that I had to take, so we just sat there for hours drawing. On this particular day, our subject was a nude model. Now, I wasn't ready for that. That wasn't on the syllabus. And I'm just a shy young farm boy from Rosso, South Dakota, just across the border, population 406, fights in first grade, we're Catholics versus Lutherans, and John Deere versus International, and I wasn't ready for this. I couldn't look at her. But if I didn't look at her, I couldn't draw either. So something had to give here. I had to find a compromise. I had to figure out how to turn this bad stress into good stress, and I brought that picture, that drawing, with me tonight. So I didn't look at her, all right? I did manage a few sustained glances at her feet. Thanks again for coming here tonight. I really appreciate you listening to my stories, and I hope again that you can just take a few very simple, that don't cost anything, all right? These changes of moving from have to get to, okay? And trying to recognize the good stress in your life and see it as something that's connected to a solution, and you want to grab that and use it, and then recognize that bad stress and let it go. I also want to thank Concordia College for letting me come back to my alma mater and put my best foot forward. Good night to you, and good stress to you, too.